Hi everybody, welcome to 5 Minute Ministries. First of all, you see I'm back to my original lighting. Until I have time to play with it, I'm not going to use the new lighting. Anyway, that out of the way, I'm continuing my unintentional series about Egypt. I was talking about returning to Egypt and never returning to Egypt. Now I want to focus on the journey to the Promised Land. Now, I mentioned this a little bit in the previous two messages, but going to the Promised Land, getting to where God had promised us we are going to be, there are some things that have happened and examples in the Bible that tells us what we should and should not do ultimately. Now, if you're on your way to the Promised Land, you know you're going to spend a lot of time in the desert. But even during that time, God offered a lot of provision. He gave them a cloud to follow by day and a pillar of fire to follow by night. But the catch was they had to follow wherever the pillar and the cloud went. They couldn't just go out on their own, because if they did, they would burn up in the desert, or they would freeze at night if they went away from God's direction. God provided many things. He provided water, He provided food, He provided shelter, He provided everything that they needed. Their clothes never wore out. While they had to wander around, they did not build permanent homes. God was with them every step of the way. And of course, it did not stop a majority of them from complaining about it. They complained so much that God had to send punishments to them because they were ungrateful for what God had provided. Now, maybe some would say, well, He only provided bread and water. And, well, He did provide quail too. But He was still providing. What were they expecting to have? What were they expecting to get out of the desert that God did not give to them? They complained many times, we've seen nothing but this manna. And pretty much manna actually means, what is this? They did not know, but we call it bread from heaven. And they had stipulations on how and when they collected that. And they would always have enough to eat if they followed God's directions. They would always have enough to drink if they followed God's directions. And that is really the point. As you're on your way to your promised land, the mansions that Jesus is preparing for you in heaven, you are to follow Him regardless of what He does and does not give you. He will give you what you need to continue on in your journey through the desert that we call this sinful world. Now, whenever we take that for granted, or whenever we are ungrateful for that, God will send us reminders that we need to be grateful and that He is the one providing for us. It may not seem like the right thing. It may not seem like the things that we want, but it always is the right thing, no matter how we look at it, no matter how we feel about it. God is providing what we need. And if we continue to follow Him, if we follow wherever the cloud goes, when the pillar moved, Israel moved. And we have to do the same thing. Whenever God moves us, we also have to move. Now, I'm not talking necessarily about moving houses and location and jobs and all that, but whatever God requires of us, we need to do. And we need to be thankful that God is allowing us to do these things for Him and in His power. If He moves us to talk to somebody about Him, we should do it. If He moves us to minister to a person in a certain way, we should do that. As when we start to grumble and complain like the Israelites did, we will also face the consequences that they did. And we may not face the same exact ones like the poisonous snakes or the ground opening up and swallowing people, or even the punishment of wandering for 40 years. But we will face things that God will send to us. And some will be more drastic than others. God knows how to get our attention, and we need to pay attention when He does. We need to ask God to forgive us for our ungratefulness, for complaining so much, for not obeying Him. And we need to focus on that journey to the promised land. We need to keep our eyes on the prize, as it said. We say, God, I know You have a place for me. I know You have a direction for my life, and I want to follow that, and then follow it. Don't just agree with it, but follow it. Do what He says. Keep away from the things that you know will cause you to stumble. And don't look at your circumstances but look and focus on Him. This has been 5 Minute Ministries, and I'll see you next time.